Hello. Are you able to hear me, Dr. Poonam?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Namaskar, this is Professor Aman Agarwal from Indian Institute of Finance, and we are hosting these IIF webinar series on the essence of life and growth. The prime premises of holding these series is to bring in positivity in life and talk about the way life is changing dynamically, but with the perspective of people who have spent about 3 to 4 decades of work experience, life, and my personal belief was that they have seen all kinds of upturns and downturns in life. So to bring their perspective from different walks of life, people from different countries, different professions, to come and speak on how do they see life and growth goes up. And that is what our objective was. And as I said, the prime objective is to keep the note positive. Certainly, there would be some underlying negativities, but we will keep them apart as well. Just a basic disclaimer, we are observing all the norms outlined by the Ministry of Home Affairs in terms of conducting webinar meetings, which is, and as a matter of fact, we have decided based on them that the audios and the videos will be kept off for all participants except for the speaker who will be in spotlight. And then only in the question and answer sessions, those who would like to raise their hands for asking questions, we will give them an opportunity to speak. We are going to hold this session for 30 minutes, and after which we will open up their mics and videos for question and answers. We have with us an eminent personality. I have known her for good 25 years now. She is an authority in her area. She is a serious researcher and a professor, a teacher, and she has taught me as well for a short duration at the University of Delhi Hindu College as well. So I am very privileged to have her with me. She is the Associate Professor of University of Delhi. She has done her PhD in corporate governance, and she has an MPhil, which is specialization in banking sector reforms. I will now move on to Poonamji in a minute, and then we will hear from her on the perspective of life and growth. Namaskar, please welcome Dr. Poonam Sethi ji.
Thank you very much, Professor Aman. It's really a privilege to be with you people today. And I have been off and on, I have participated in these webinars. And I must admit that you are doing a great job bringing together people from different walks of life who have been sharing their pearls of wisdom. And definitely to bring them together on a platform is a big achievement. Really, I would appreciate your effort in this regard, and I'm deeply indebted to you for associating me with this entire event.
Thank you very much. So as we said, we are going to talk about life and growth and the essence of it. The first question, as I always ask my speakers, but before that first question, you deal with young minds. You deal with minds who have just come out of school, who are completely raw in terms of what they do, and certainly have got a lot of freedom, from a school environment which has a lot of restrictions, a lot of structures, laid down course outlines, laid down timetables. You cannot move here and there. You come into an open environment. I remember my days when you come to an open environment, no one asks you, no one questions you, no one does anything. Now, given that you deal with a new wave of these young, bright kids in your, or I would say young, bright minds instead of kids in your college, in your university. Now, how do you see really life changing in the last 25, 30 years of your experience from their perspective before we go on to the other aspects?
From their perspective, of course, things have changed dramatically, I would admit. Initially, when we address our students in the first year, they sit very coyly, and they are, you can see that they are not ready to believe that there is only a timetable where a teacher will enter and leave the classroom without really bothering about their attendance so much. Of course, if one is absent consistently, then we do question them. But otherwise, this newfound freedom, it is very difficult for them to digest. And in the first semester, I have seen they are quite lost, quite lost. But by the end of the first semester, and as they enter the second semester, they get the hang of what college life is. And college life is very unique. And I don't know in the coming times how much we are going to miss this sense of community that we inherit during our college days. The students are allowed to mix up with others, with the seniors, with students coming from different backgrounds, and suddenly, the students are thrown into a very different kind of an environment, because all this while they have mixed up, they've mingled up with the students, of which more or less were similar in their upbringing. But somehow when they come to the university, they find they would be mingling with students who've come from far and distant parts of the country. So sometimes, that model actually throws some new challenges for them, but simultaneously it also gives them opportunities to grow as individuals. So that's my take on that. And by the end of third year, we've seen them bloom into young individuals with a lot of aspirations and a lot of exposure down the line, and they are really, particularly if I talk of Hindu College, Delhi University, one of the premier universities of India, they have dreams. They have big dreams. And I tell you, most of them fulfill their dream. They are able to do that. They are able to achieve that with whatever they have acquired during their college life.
I'm very happy you outlined, because in fact, actually, when I speak to people across the globe, even their similar structures are noticed, where people, when they come to new structures, new disciplines, new areas, they get, typically lost. I remember my time when I was actually moving to the US, and I was perplexed with this problem of plenty. And I always refer to it as the problem of plenty. Even when in college, we have plenty of time, no one to chalk out our schedules, and that makes a little complexity in terms of doing things. Thank you for that insight. Now I'll begin with the fact that, what do you think are the key factors which actually define the essence of life and growth, in your opinion, based on your 30, 40 years of existence in life?
So without any intention to sound like a prophet or a seer, I would sum up my understanding of the essence of life and growth as constituting of three elements of human attitude. And this I say with a lot of conviction, because our profession provides us this opportunity to observe lives very closely. Batches after batches we are observing. And it also allows us to document our experiences which arise out of these collective experiences we are documenting based on these observations. So basically, I have listed down about three things, which form the essence of life and growth. And of course, we've heard them number of times. They've been handed down to us by our elders. And I tell you, they still hold good. And it is all up to us how we imbibe them in our real life and how we, carry it forward. So, of course, these elements are, number one, dharma, what we call as dharma. Everybody has some certain dharma that has been assigned to that person. The second is the karma or the karma. And third is Vishwas, the faith. So if taking them one by one, I would like to say regarding dharma. So
given the international audience, if you can also give the English corollary for that as well.
So dharma is, there is no English word for it. Frankly speaking, I had tried looking up for an English word, but somehow it's not there. So nothing that actually translates the term. So we keep it as that, people can, pick up new vocabulary from the Indian subcontinent now that it is rising as a phoenix. So dharma and the karma and Vishwas, the faith. So of course, when we talk about dharma, already several scriptures and experts have delved into the deeper meanings and the multiple connotations of the word dharma. But in order to simplify the concept, it is an eternal order that rules the universe at the macro level, and the adherence to duty, law, and life's objectives at the personal level, or what we may call as discipline. We have to observe a certain discipline in our life, and that arises out of our dharma. So but what actually happens when we practice our dharma? What is happening? So when we practice dharma, we are actually stepping into and aligning with that eternal order, the macro order that I am talking about, with that eternal order, and we invite its wisdom to illuminate our lives. And dharma is something that nurtures the subjects, and in turn it nurtures the society. And the sole aim with which dharma is advocated is to bring about orderly existence in order to cut down on any kind of chaos in social life, in the political sphere, even in the spiritual world. We have to cut down the chaos, and we have to emerge out as a winner. So it's basically, when we talk of dharma, we are advocating it for orderly existence and perpetual evolution of the individuals. Now, this dharma is then followed by karma, or what we call as karma in Hindi. So, dharma is followed by karma, the action, word, or work or the deed. So the karma or the energy that has been allocated for activity needs to be expended in the right direction in order to achieve the desired results, and to attain the duties or fulfill the duties that you have been assigned as part of your dharma. And our actions and their consequences will tell us to pay attention to what we do and what happens, right? So that really will help us in knowing what we are doing and what it is resulting in. So what is inbuilt in this theory of karma is that we need to be aware of what we are doing and what our actions are resulting into. So with that level of with that awareness, we can be better individuals, and we create a life with minimal suffering and maximum joy and peace. So that's my understanding of karma. And this is then followed by the faith or Vishwas. Of course, in this, the theory that is automatically inbuilt in this concept of faith is that we believe that there is a supreme force which guides us, which helps us in evolving as individuals. So there, of course, we have to take some wisdom from our seniors or from our elders. And even Swami Vivekananda has said once that if you don't believe you cannot believe in God unless you believe in yourself. So it is that inner attitude, the conviction or the trust, relating human beings to that supreme power. So ideally, one should be one's own cheerleader, and one should fuel one's own momentum to fulfill one's motivation. So and of course you draw your strength from that supreme power, and that supreme power will automatically ensure, that if you believe in yourself, you will and you can. So that is what I believe is one of the most important essence of life and growth. And only when you have the faith in yourself and the supreme power, you will have the strength to move forward in times of adversity, also take risks for growth and progress, and easily take both success and failure in your stride, because that is an automatic outcome of any action. You could be successful, or you could be a failure. So but then what is required here is perseverance and faith in the God and in yourself, that you will be able to achieve what you have set out your foot for. So these are the three main attributes that I consider as very, very important, as essential for life and growth. And since I am a teacher of commerce, I have found an example, where we can look at a manufacturing, let us say a manufacturing company, and what kind of dharma, karma, and faith, a manufacturing company should have in order to be of service to the society. So in terms of dharma, if it would include the laws of the land, the laws, of course, we have to, as a law-abiding citizens, every manufacturing company, every corporate, every consumer, every citizen has to go by the laws of the land. And in this case, we would talk about the company law, the accounting standards, and of course, then there is the self-imposed dharma, which talks about the memorandum of association, the articles of association, the vision and the mission statements that we have, we have to lay down. Every organization has to lay down, and of course, its offshoots like strategy and the standard operating procedures, which are then much in line with the accepted norms of the industry. And coming over to karma. Now, what does karma entail for a manufacturing company for that matter? So it would include things like sourcing, production, and marketing executed by the company would constitute karma or action. And of course, if I may mention here, karma is within the boundaries as defined by our dharma, right? So this is, in a way, the boundaries or the framework has already been defined by dharma, and the karma has to operate within those boundaries. And of course, lastly, the faith that I talked about, the Vishwas that I talked about, is of course the most important thing. The Vishwas, or the trust that leads the company to income generation for the entity and the wealth creation for its shareholders or for its stakeholders, the various stakeholders. So that is like translating my understanding of these essential attributes translated to my subject. Yes.
Thank you. I'm happy to welcome my colleagues from US, from Japan, from Malaysia, from Sri Lanka, and also from UAE. We'll go forward with this now. In any case, just to add one line to what she said, I think it's amazing. She pointed out the very key elements. Just for people who are there who do not understand the Indian system, dharma is something like a belief. Now you can have a belief in a specific god or a specific religion, and you can take those notes from there and follow them, or you can develop your own structures. It's not necessary that you need to follow a specific religion or a god. And then karma is something which you are doing and building onto it, where she explained beautifully. And then the Vishwas, which is faith in what you do, what you're doing and what you're believing. It's important. If you do not believe in what you're doing and what you are believing, you cannot achieve the goals you want to achieve in life. And that's something which she beautifully pointed out with the help of a business example, in fact. You remind me of, again, the Rig Veda saying, which I read a couple of days back, and I thought I should bring it in, and maybe you can respond to it. If you want to enjoy the fruits and happiness of life, take up systematic planting of trees. How do we connect this with the human capital and the essence of life?
How do I connect? Could you repeat the last line?
Yeah, I said with the Rig Veda saying that if you want to enjoy the fruits and happiness of life, take up systematic planting of trees. Now, it is not only trees which are being planted, it's something which you want to understand. How do we connect this particular Rig Veda saying with the development of human capital and the essence of life and growth? Because you are in the process of developing human capital all through your life. So how do we connect this both with life and growth and the human capital?
So it's a very interesting observation that has been put in the form of a shloka. And of course, these are the real essence of life and growth. And we, having, taught about 30 batches now, in the university, even you coming back to me is a tree that has been planted by me, isn't it?
Sure.
So all the effort that we put into human capital, and this human capital is the real resource. I tell you, it is not the buildings, it is not the mortar, not the brick. None of those infrastructures are the essence of life and growth. Today, if you come to Hindu college, the building is empty, but we are still talking. So who is talking? Who is still continuing with the connection? So that connect, I tell you, is something that we must nurture. We must nurture, and this is something that teachers actually do. Even in our profession, we have this advantage. We are not dealing with unknown people. We are not dealing with paperwork. We are dealing with people. So when we deal with people, I think we make the biggest investment. And surprisingly, and you also must be coming across now that you are also a teacher with a reckoning, so I'm sure how students come back to you and tell you that what little advice that I had given at some point of time has stood the test of time for them and helped them, tide over certain crises, or how, a small talk that I gave them, a pep talk or a motivational talk, or probably, told them that these are the things that they can pursue, when they were completely lost and they did not know how to, navigate through that kind of a crisis. So they have come back to us and they have told us that, you are the real, mentor. You have played that role. And I think every person, as a mother sometimes, or as a father, everyone is playing that role. But then for us, it gets translated into a bigger role, when we are nurturing our students batches after batches. And when we see them growing, nothing can, substitute that feeling of joy.
True. I fully appreciate and endorse that, because I get the same feeling many times. How do you see, there's a lot of divergence, lot of convergence of issues, lot of digital influx into our lives, the problem of plenty, with the other confusions which are happening all across the globe and within the country as well. How do you perceive, or how do you see life and growth shaping up in the next 6 months to a year?
So, well, I think this will be a period of resurrection and restructuring. That goes without saying. We cannot continue with the old model at all. The newer challenges that have been thrown, or rather, we've been caught unawares, and we haven't really worked on the models which will really last us in the next few years. But the fact of the matter is that the essence, rather, for the next 6 months to a year will be resurrection and restructuring to a normal, to normal, and this normal also getting redefined. This normal also getting redefined to the new normal, and not the one that we are accustomed to or were accustomed to. So, and the key objective, which people may differ with my opinion, the key objective in the coming months will not be the growth, but sustainable operations that take into account preservation of all resources, especially the human resource. I have already talked about the importance of human resource and how we need to conserve it. And the society will have to reorient itself to being more conservationist than ambitious. So that's my outlook towards the future as of now.
True. And what is your opinion is the success mantra for tomorrow?
So, as teachers, I agree. We have been, doling out mantras every other day, and they are definitely as eternal, as many things that we know. And the key success mantra that I would like to suggest here is to unlearn the past. To unlearn the past and learn to develop the future in context of the new circumstances. Because upheavals do disturb, and it's a major, massive upheaval that we are witnessing as of now. And there is no way, no way that we can predict the unknown or the uncertainty. We cannot cut it down with the present models. So we have to look at the new circumstances, and the upheavals that have disturbed the status quo will lead to newer models to come up, which will generate new opportunities. I'm very sure that will happen. Will generate new opportunities and sustainable mechanisms and optimization of the resources. Like yesterday, I was reading some article, and it was talking about digital twins. So the digital twins will be used hereafter for doing the human clinical trials. So without subjecting the real human beings to that kind of risk. So that would be a fantastic discovery which has arisen in times of adversity. And what we are doing right now, Zoom meeting, is also, it has arisen as part of this crisis only.
True, true. So do you feel that life is inherently unpredictable and insecure? You must have seen lots of ups and downs professionally, in the university, in your personal life in the last 40 years, whether it was before marriage or after marriage. Do you really, based on that, do you really feel it is unpredictable and unsecure?
See, in many ways, yes. I mean, there is no denying that, because uh, it's not that out of thin air that we hear that man proposes and God disposes. So we slept one night and we woke up to this corona pandemic, and things completely changed for us. So we are no more going to the college. We are no more having any face-to-face interaction with the students. We are trying to devise ways of handling this. But then, despite all the uncertainty, despite all the unpredictable character of life, life goes on. You have that faith. You need to have that faith that you will be able to work out some alternative, some constructive alternative to your current crisis. So life is moving from one crisis to another, and then it's history.
So is the state of constant change an absolute and immutable one?
Yes, of course. I mean, that is something that we all must accept. Though educationists have often been labeled as resistant to change, and, and they also refuse to be seen by the lens of the businessmen. And I still stand by that. But then the kind of change that has been thrust upon us, imposed upon us, if we don't, acclimatize ourselves to this new change, we do face a grave crisis. So it is essential to change in the given circumstances.
How do you think one can actually bring in certainty and uncertainty, especially when it comes to life, bringing inducing happiness, and when you want to see growth also be there? Every one of us has different perspective to growth, but when we want to see both happen, how do we induce that certainty and uncertainty?
See, one thing is certain, that is death, right? So today if we sleep and tomorrow if we don't get up, I mean, there is no way, we can question our destiny that way. But then that also should not be a force that should not allow us to live, so we need to go about our duties the way we need to. If I'm married, then of course there are certain duties that have been bestowed on me by the system, by the society. Or if I am a teacher, then there is a certain dharma and certain karma that I need to follow. And if I don't do what I am supposed to do, just because life is uncertain, and I cannot bring in 100% certainty in what I do, I will be, a lazy couch, simply just sitting in my home and fearing, situations which I cannot handle. But then that is not a human attribute. Every human being does strive to attain better life, attain more knowledge, more wisdom as they, live their life.
True, true. You must have seen and you must have been witnessing large number of steps being taken by various governments across the globe,
Yes.
to ensure smooth induction of growth, not only because of Corona, but even before that, for almost 70 years, India's different prime ministers, different governments have come, even in different other parts of the world, whether it was Lincoln or Kennedy or Obama or Clinton, everyone, or it was in other parts of the world, we saw different governments have tried to induce smooth growth and a concept of happy living, which has emerged in the last 20 years in particular. Various countries talking about happiness index, wanting to induce that. Two countries have actually done some efforts in this particular area also. But given whatever has been done and lately what is happening, what do you think governments could actually do from an academic perspective, from a person who deals with the youth on a day-to-day basis? I know you're not connected, you're not going to college, but even then, a teacher is always a teacher. The students never leave them even for a minute. They are like children and of one's own, whether it's one born from one's womb or one comes as a student. They are all children for us. And for that perspective, what do you think the governments, not only Indian government, but governments in general could do? What has not been done so far? They've tried to do financial packages, they've do lockdowns, they've tried to do emotional connects. But what else do you think they could do to bring in more happy living concept and a sustained framework of growth?
See, the focus of the government should definitely be happy living, because as of now, definitely people are suffering, you know, and 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 particularly if we talk about people who do not have access to food, or there is some kind of food scarcity, or if there are people who do not have housing facilities, or we talk of people coming from low income backgrounds, or people having multiple issues, for them, I think the government needs to step in, and they have to ensure that at least the basic, yesterday we had the speaker, Professor Dr. Jaishankar ji, who talked about roti, kapda and makan. So we definitely, they will remain the most important things. And we've also, as teachers, as students, we study the Maslow's need hierarchy model, which does talk about all these things. So basically the first attempt towards happiness would be to include every section of the society within its reach. And because if they are left out, then there is no happiness. I cannot be happy if my students are not happy, and already we've tried to reach out to students, and somehow because of the fact that most of the students left in the middle of the semester, they went away for their holy break, and they did not carry their books, they did not carry their laptops, and most of these stuff is still lying in the hostels. And given the scenario that you really don't know when they will be able to come back to the campus, we are facing certain issues, particularly even if we engage with the students online. So some of the students who are living in remote parts of the country have reported that they do not have access to all the online classes, or to the internet and the Wi-Fi, and they do not have those smartphones also, and they are facing a lot of difficulties. So I'm worried. So on to that extent, I'm really worried whether these students will ever make a comeback to the campus. Will we ever have the same kind of culture that we had before the pandemic broke out? We do not really know how the whole new model is likely to pan out in the times to come. So for the government, it is very essential, and even for the institutions, the corporates, the consumers also, they need to do a heavy rethinking, wherein this policy of inclusion is brought in.
Correct.
So,
I have two more questions before we open the house for question and answers from participants. One is that, recently, and other speakers did vouch for a large part of it, but recently various agencies have come out with growth figures. And the most prominent was of IMF coming out with 1.9% GDP growth in 2020, which means January to December, not our financial year, but the calendar year, January to December 2020, and about 7.4% for 2021. That means again January to December 2021. Now, in your opinion, having seen different phases of growth in the country in the last 40, 50 years, do you think these figures, and in fact, other agencies have raised us between 1.7% to 4% of GDP growth, which is there. Now, given that, do you think these estimates by IMF are too optimistic or too conservative in nature?
See, I don't think institutions can afford to be over optimistic in the current scenario. They are definitely on the conservative side, and if we are able to obtain a higher percentage, a higher growth rate, there is nothing, nobody is going to criticize you for that. But obviously, if we are not able to attain what we are projecting, that can become an issue of criticism. So I'm sure they have exercised all caution in coming up with these figures, and conservative attitude is definitely the underlying thought as of now for every government.
True. Thank you. Last question from me before we open the house. And I would request everybody to kindly raise their hands, whoever wants to ask questions. I know 2 people who have told me beforehand, but still, if anyone wants to raise, I have noted 2 or 3 people, but still anyone wants to raise, please raise their hands. There's an option to raise hands so that I can request you to ask a question. My last question, Poonam ji, to you is life about money and power? Because that's what we see in newspapers every day. Whether it is
so definitely not.
sports or otherwise. We don't see scientists coming up. We don't see, except for nowadays when scientists and researchers are coming up, but we don't hardly see, a good news as such, making good news from people, from small nick and corners of this country who are doing great work. But is life, so in your opinion, is life about money and power?
See, it is always a balance. You cannot simply say that we should not have a target in life. And I can't lead a life of a seer, where I say that I will not draw any money, I will not take my salary, I will only teach it because it is a noble profession. So given that fact, I also have a personal life and I need to strike a balance, So that remains the essence of life and growth, that you need to strike a balance. Excess of anything is bad, and that we've seen in these times, that things had gone, the pollution levels, the air that we were breathing, the number of cars on the road, the road accidents that were happening, the rate of crime, the rape, and what not under the sky was happening. So excess of anything is bad, and there were occasions when we would just sigh a big heave a big sigh and say, oh my God, what's happening on this earth? Why people are going these ways? Where are all the pearls of wisdom? Why people don't tell, why parents don't advise their children as to what is wrong, what is right? But perhaps somewhere, the parents have also failed in their duty. And I would not shirk away from admitting that maybe the teachers also. Because beyond a point, we also treat it as our profession, So very few you would find, who take up their job as something, which is something, which keeps them constantly engaged happily with their students. So we have seen, in fact, over the years, since you talked about this earlier also, what transition I have observed that over the years, the role of teachers has also become very different, very different from the one that we were used to, when we entered the profession. It was, I remember some of the teachers who were a force to reckon with, and they had a huge standing, a huge following amongst the students. But over the years, what I have seen is that the teachers have been entrusted with so much of other works other than teaching, that somewhere, the teaching actually has taken a back seat, and everybody is out to earn brownie points with the administration with regard to all other activities except academics. And somewhere that has led to compromise. And I would really say that balance is the essence, and unless that balance is exercised, we cannot attain anything, be it power, be it money, be it happiness. And happiness is the ultimate, that is the spiritual dharma of every human being on this earth. And only if we recognize that will we be able to have a family, a global family of which is happy, which is contented, and which is satisfied.
Yes. We have Professor Kishore Kulkarni now. I'll open the house. Thank you for this. We have Professor Kishore Kulkarni from the US, from Denver. If he's still around, he had raised his hand initially. No. I'll go to Osa. I see Osa from Sweden. Osa, if you can ask your question, please. Are you able to hear me, Osa? We will go to her later. Then the other people who are there. Junzo, I see you here as well. Junzo Watada is a professor from Waseda University, Japan. He is now retired from there. He is now a full professor and head of the Department of Petronas University in Malaysia. And we have him here. So Junzo, if you can ask a question, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Poonam. I understood the karma today, and I listened your talk from different directions. For example, I think India may be a male-centered society, like Japan and Malaysia. So I think it is not easy for female people to live in such a society. But on the other hand, for example, in Malaysia, usually female people are more excellent than male. Male, the scholar do not work hard, but female scholars work hard and obtain a good result. It is quite popular, even in Japan. But in Japan, the female people cannot obtain a good position. For example, CEO, the rate of CEO is quite few, even professor in academia, not so many. How do you think about the India situation? For example, on the other hand, another question, I read a novel written by the professor of University of Delhi. This is about the dentist, dead person's story. He lost his family in India, Delhi. He moved to the Halifax in Canada, and he remarried with Indian person. She kept her living way as in India. But usually, for example, my friend, male friend, used to adjust his life to the today's the society. For example, even vegetarian. When I visited his the home, usually wife provided vegetarian food, but he can eat something other also. So the male can adjust. About the novel story, female, the wife returned to India. She cannot adjust to the big city in outside of India. So how do you think about the female people's living style? So you emphasize karma. So how do you think about such a female living style in India? This is my question. Thank you.
So thank you. That's a very interesting question, and a very, I would say, can invite a lot of opinions from the participants also. But of course, since I have to give my opinion, I'll try my best to share my views on the subject. Well, as a professor, who's been teaching in Delhi University for almost about 3 decades, and having been born and brought up in the city of Delhi, had my schooling, etc., in one of the best schools, I am privileged. I must admit, I am privileged. And not everyone is. And I agree that if we really convert the entire data in terms of percentage as to how many women are in leading positions, whether it is the corporate world or whether it is the teaching world or any of the leading industries or the dominant industries, of course, the women leaders are far less. And that, I agree, is largely because we are a male-dominated society and we have to break the glass ceiling. I mean, efforts have to be made, and it is not just that the women alone can do it. It has the impetus also has to come from the male community. So of course things have changed since then, since I was born, and what we see today, women are much more liberated. They are able to express their opinions in a more, I would say, defiant manner sometimes, and there is nothing that can that stops them from expressing themselves and achieving what they wish to achieve. But nonetheless, this I am talking about the privileged class of women. The majority of women still aren't as educated. So on that front, India really has to make huge strides, have female included in the education system, because as of now, the the culture of the Indian society is such, which ensures, which kind of creates pressure on the parents to get their girls married off by the time they are 25, 26. And we all know that in the current scenario, 25, 26 is an age when the career is at it's just beginning to chart out its path. And and because they are sometimes abruptly married off, their careers go down the graph, and they can only make a comeback after about 4 or 5 years, when they've lost precious years into the this line of competition. So definitely the culture plays a dominant role in empowering its women, but India is making its own efforts in that direction, in terms of certain policies, in terms of fundings, in terms of several other schemes that have been launched to ensure that they take up entrepreneurial roles sometimes, and they also forge their way ahead into the system in multiple ways. So that is my opinion, that's my take. So I definitely agree that we have to work hard on that. And being a privileged woman, it is a major responsibility of people like me, who must do hand holding with women who are less privileged. And I tell you, we do it. We do it in our classrooms. We do it when we come across women from, girls from the low income group. We ensure that they get enough funding, they get subsidized residential facilities, they don't drop out in case there are any problems, they are facing any mental issues, any family burdens, any financial burdens. We do extend helping hands. So so much that we can do so far, and of course we expect the government to do more than what it is doing as of now.
Do you think you think hard to live in India comparing living in the United States as women?
You think it is difficult for women to live in India as compared to living in the United States?
So no, but then certain things which we can take for granted here, I think one cannot take for granted in America. So maybe the Americans may disagree on that, but then if we look at the statistics, the family bond is much more strong in India than it is in US. So that way, we have a family system where, the couple, will work hard to bring up their children, and will see them through their youth, and even marry them off and take care of the grandchildren as well. They would like to remain associated with their children, with their dear loved ones, with their dear ones. And unfortunately, that is something that is not so visible in US, where people sometimes may, on issues of compatibility, may just decide to part ways because they don't want to carry any burden of their spouse or of their partner. So to that extent, I'm really proud of being an Indian woman and to be living in India. Despite its own challenges, as Professor Aman said, I still relish staying in India than I would do in US.
Thank you very much. Quite nice the explanation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Junzo, for that question. And I'll go to Osai, and then I'll go to Ashok, because he's lived in both parts of the world and still lives in both parts of the world. And then I'll go to Faisi Ilyasi. But before I do that, I have a small brief comment to make, because I was on a panel invited by the World Bank and IIF for the annual meeting 2 years back, in fact 3 years, 2017, to address them on this particular roundtable which was there, and I was presenting India per se. And I had 2-3 points which I would like to point out, not a question or debate, but to just point out almost 50% of the population of India is women. And it may be actually more when the next census comes out, firstly. Secondly, when Rani Lakshmi Bai started the first independence movement in 1850s, late 1840s, she was the only female ruler. And I don't see a history text which says women is there as a leader, so we will not follow her. So I think that is where the respect for women has been there from historical perspective. Even if you look at the Hindu religion, where almost about 75 to 80% of India practices Hinduism as a way of life, even in there, if you compare the number of gods and goddesses, I would say the gods are only about 3 or 4%. Maximum number of them are women. But the important aspect is that when we grow up from being children, the women are told to pray to 3 gods and the men are told to pray to 3 goddesses. So there is an inherent dependence and interlocking between the two. The other thing, which 2 points more before I ask also to come in, is the fact that I have seen 4 generations, 3 generations I have known in my family, and my mother's great grandmother has been working. So she has been working in the late 1800s, and not that they were very rich or very affluent or any kind of that. She was a middle class, maybe 3rd or 4th class, 5th class female. But even then, she was working and her family did allow. So there has been that structure wherein people have been allowed in the country to go about working. And lastly, my mother I have seen for, she has been also a product of University of Delhi, and she has worked in University of Delhi as a principal of a college of University of Delhi, and she retired a couple of years back. She got the same pay as a male colleague, which is not there in the US and large part of the European world as well. That means irrespective of whether she gets maternity leave or any other leave, she got still the same pay as the male. It is not the question of working hours which she was putting in. And that's very critical. Voting rights in Switzerland have been given to women only in 96, 97. So imagine from that perspective where we are. I think we need to balance out what we have, what we don't have. Every coin has 2 sides. And again, I'm just adding these points to what Poonamji has said. I'm not questioning her outlay, but I thought I should open it because there are people from all across the globe, and then they need to have a perspective of what is happening. And each one of you have their own perspective of what they are coming. In large part of India, even today, women are the decision takers in the families. Men may be the bold face, but ultimately the decision is of the woman in the family, even if she's a homemaker. And our Prime Minister Modi ji has been trying to see how can we bring in that effort which the woman puts, even if she's a housemaker or homemaker, doesn't do any work, physical work, that work which she does in terms of building the tomorrow of the country, that is the children of the country and others, how can we bring that? Because that's real productivity. How can we actually factor that in as part of GDP growth? And that's a very important component apart from the happiness, because if you don't have children, if you don't have productive, good human beings tomorrow, if you don't have the right kind of human resource tomorrow, no nation can exist. And large number of countries around the world are facing and perplexed with this problem. Some of them are importing people, but many of them are perplexed with this problem. I remember Finland when I visited first time way back in 1997, 98. At that time, the population was 5 million. When I visited them in 2009 or 10 to address the Finnish parliament second time, the population was 5.1 million. Now imagine what is the growth competence which is happening in the country. And that's where they had a problem of how do we bring in people. Now, this is where we need to factor in how do we look at growth and the essence of growth and bring in. So I just wanted to add these points. Dr. Poonam can comment, and I would bow before her saying what she has. And I'll just open it to now Åsa, if she can ask a question. Also, she's from Sweden. She's a coach leader. She's a leadership person. She's worked with the United Nations. She's worked with UNCTAD. She's worked with the World Economic Forum. She's worked for large companies like the ABB. She's working for over 55 countries as a consultant on various issues of leadership development. And we are going to have her also speak at one of our forums soon. And I'm hoping people will be listening to her. But for now, just to introduce Åsa, I know she doesn't do that, and I had to put those words in. Åsa, please go ahead. Also, your voice is, just a second, sorry. Your voice is, not audible, Åsa. Yes, hello.
Let me try another, because my daughter is studying next door, so I don't want to disturb her too much. She's doing home studying through the computer. Do you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, excellent. So thank you very much, Poonam, for your very interesting... Ja, vad är det, Hanna? That was my daughter telling me not to be too loud. So yeah, so my daughter is really, she knows what she wants and she knows how to demand things. When she wants quietness, she wants quietness. And now she's telling me to be quiet. As you said, Aman, I have worked in many different countries. I happen to come from a country where we are said to have women in the very, we have a lot of gender equality in our country. That is what people say about our country. I wouldn't say that we are absolutely 100% equal. And I think one of the reasons why we aren't equal is because, one, we are different. So we cannot be the same. So let's not try to make women bad copies of men. Women lead in a completely different way than men do. Actually, some of the most profitable companies in Sweden are led by women. H&M, Microsoft, etc. And I use those women very often as role models when I do my training, because I think that's something we need to do. We have to use role models. It is good to speak about the poor, but we cannot only focus on that. We also have to show the strength, the strong positions that women have. And I think as fathers and mothers, we must not forget that it is we are role models for our children. So it only takes one generation if we really, really make an effort to change that. When my daughter when she started coming to us and say, I want pocket money, I did a quick survey with the parents of her friends, and I asked them, how much are you giving your children pocket money? Because I had no clue how much to give. It turned out that the boys were receiving 25 to 30% more than the girls. And I just thought, why are the boys receiving more? They're not spending more than the girls. So I went to my daughter and I said, this is how much the girls are getting, this is how much the boys are getting, and this is how much the boy who gets the most is getting. And I'm going to give you exactly that. You're never going to settle with less than the best. So I'm just wondering how, I don't know what my question really is, but how do you think that, how would you integrate that in your reality, Poonam? Do you have children? Do you work to get, because it's not only about the men not giving the women the chance, it's about the women not always taking that chance, because sometimes power, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with power. It's sometimes very uncomfortable to be in that position. I know that myself because I enjoy power. But then also I have to accept all the negative things that come with power. And I do because my mother showed me and taught me how to do it. But I think we also have to bring this to our daughters and our sons, that how can they actually change their future? I would like to hear your reactions on that, Poonam.
First, I would like to really applaud the way you have handled this pocket money issue with your daughter. I think that really sets a very good example for everyone to follow, you know. And basically, as you said, parents are the role model, and they are the first role models that the children will follow and will always remember what their parents did to them and otherwise also to each other. So taking leaf out of my personal life, I would like to share this with you, that my husband is, as of now, he's posted in Mumbai for last 4 years. And now because of the lockdown, he hasn't visited the house for almost like 2.5 months. So he used to come because he's posted with another PSU, and he comes once a month to visit us. And of course, I do not bog him down with many of the things, you know, which normally a male would do in a household, you know. So I have been handling the household all by myself, and I have 2 grown-up boys, you know, who have to be, in many ways, you know, I have to act as their mentor, sometimes as an advisor, as a counselor, and sometimes as a strict parent, and sometimes as one, you know, who throws tantrums also. So there are different ways, you know, which I have to, opt for while I'm taking this entire challenge of running the household all by myself. So definitely, maybe they don't see me as a role model immediately, but then as time would lapse, they will understand that yes, their mother stood her ground, and I did not. I could have easily taken leave from my job, and we could have moved in with our husband in Mumbai. But then, given the fact that his job is again transferable, how long can I afford to do that? So I decided to station myself in where I am right now, so that my children get a consistent style of living as well as education, so that they don't keep changing, moving to different states, because that can also create problems for the children, if they have to adopt to newer methods of teaching, new teachers, new schools. That can be troublesome for the children. And these are like their formative years. One of them is going to the college, and the other has just completed his 12th class. So he is ready to enter the college now. So coming back to your point, I agree that women really need to sometimes wrest this power from the men, if they are not so willing to give it away to you. I agree. And at other times, I know most of the Indian women, if we talk about, they have completely relegated certain areas to the men. And there I definitely disagree with them that, and perhaps, maybe education, lack of education is one reason. So one way of empowering women is definitely to provide them education. It's not that it's a foolproof or it's a 100% successful mantra to empower women, but that is definitely a stepping stone towards success, or let us say, even admitting that they can also play a very big role in constructing the society or improving the kind of treatment that is meted out to women per se.
Thank you. I now request Ashok. He has a daughter living in the US. We are not digressing from the topic of essence of life and growth, but I would like his input because he has a daughter and she's living in the US and he's seen lives on both sides of the country. And there was a question on the US, how the lifestyle of how things are. I'll unmute Ashok if he can ask his question. And after Ashok, I will go to Faiz Halyasi and to Ms. Harsha Garg, and then we'll move on. Ashok.
I thank Aman. It's an interesting discussion. Thanks, Poonam. I got a different experience. I run a company, almost 500 people. I probably say that half of the people are women, female employees. And I'm very particular about they get promoted based on what they can do. I got one daughter, and before that, when I got married, my wife got a PhD from BHU. But when we moved to US, when she moved to US with me, and she elected to stay home and to raise the kid. I'm so grateful to her for raising the kid because that helped me quite a lot. So she became my boss. In fact, today, right now, I tell her that she tells me, whatever that I run a company of 500 people with a CEO, and she run a company of one person. I'm the employee. So, so and that's true. So my daughter was got all the freedom to do whatever I want to do, and she was raised. I think the point or the question what I find in our company also, and maybe you can relate to that one, that it's up to us to decide how much, where I want to be in my life. I grew up in US, and I grew up in 70s, went to grad school there. It's a very difficult to get promoted in those companies because there are mostly white companies, white people there, to everything else. But I got promoted because I elect to work hard, to be different than other people, because it's much easier for me to say that there's a discrimination. Of course, there will be discrimination comes in. If I'm 10% equal to another white colleague, 10% more better than that, I'll not get promoted. The rule of the game is very different. I want to be much, much better than that. So in this society today, with the Me Too movement comes in, it was right now is a much, I probably say Me Too movement has created lots of problem for the woman itself. I talked to a lot of CEOs and myself included. My staff, there are women there and there are men there. When you travel to another city or meetings in a night, often I go for drinks with the male colleagues, male employees, and talk about business, right? I never dare to take a woman along with me, or never take a, and that creates a problem because can I give them a responsibility, where I don't have to spend time with them, I can't spend time with them. So anyhow, so I don't see any discrimination. I don't see it. It's up to, it's a freedom, it's a free to where you want to go. You have to accept the fact that women are different than the men. Sometimes they're better, and most of the time better. But, when I saw the white society back in US in 70s, I have to be better than my colleagues to get promoted. Similarly, if there is a all the male managers are there, all the male professors are there, they'll tend to promote another male, the human nature, unless if somebody is equal. But if the other person is better than them, I don't see that discrimination comes in. I have never seen it. I don't do that. I particularly very careful about promoting men do that, female women employees to do that. I want to have a diversity. But anyway, that's my experiences then in my life.
True. Thank you, Ashok.
Yeah.
Poonam, would you like to maybe respond or say something to what Ashok has raised as issues or points which he has talked about his personal and official life, the way he sees things?
So I agree. I remember some time back, I was working on a research paper, which talked about women bosses. And one of the most, the remarkable interview that I held with one of the people, who were working in an organization, the first thing that, just now Mr. Ashok has said, the first thing that they came out was that we can't have drinks with our female bosses. And with this new Me Too movement coming up, I agree. There are issues about sharing, certain things with women colleagues and the way you deal with your women colleagues. But I still feel that, women have been deprived for a very, very long time. And also they have been exploited. They have been exploited. And I'm not talking about the privileged few. I have just said that we are in a privileged society. Our parents have ensured that we got the best of education. They have ensured that, there was never any difference between the way I was brought up or my brothers were brought up. We were all treated equally. But the point is that enough? I mean, we just can't say that we are not doing it, so everything is going fine. So in fact, we need to, we need to look beyond. We need to look beyond, and we need to do that hand-holding for people who are deprived. And there is no denying this fact that women have been shortchanged on these aspects when it comes to promotion, when it sometimes, comes to leading any particular organization. So there are ample studies, which have proven that. So maybe yours is an exceptional company, or maybe it's your own dharma, which has played on your mind, and you have stuck to that philosophy that, well, I will not discriminate. And then you have really, taken this, I would say, your responsibility in a more serious way. So keeping these individual cases aside, we have to look at the larger picture. And when we look at the larger picture, we definitely are able to, draw similar conclusions that yes, women need to be, treated with more respect. They needed to be, there should be more role models of women in the corporate world and wherever. And it is also true about certain industries, where women are more comfortable, because our emotional quotient, you may contest it, our emotional quotient is much better, and I feel students, when we talk of the teaching industry, particularly the education industry, we find more than 75% of the teaching staff is now comprising of women. And perhaps this has brought a very, very, I would say, a dynamic aspect to the entire education industry, having women here, and having more and more women also makes it easier for other women to thrive and flourish, right? So unless we have more and more of these in a particular sphere, we will not feel comfortable. So till such time, we need to work hard on this. Yes.
I agree. I'm going to now open up and only 3 more questions to ask Mr. Faiza Elahi, followed by Ms. Harsha Garg, and then Dr. Yamini Agarwal. The last 3 questions which will be there. I'm sorry, others, I cannot give a chance anymore because we already exceeded our time. And I will request you to kindly contain it. We have digressed to women issues for the last 20 minutes, half an hour. To give it the chance because they are critical component when it comes to essence of life and growth. Because as I say, one cannot succeed if there is not peace. And whether it's in the family or together or otherwise. And I think, as I said, women comprise of 50% of India and also are equal partners in building any family or relationship. So given that, I wanted to give this time, but I will now request all the 3 participants.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Fasi Ilahi from Abu Dhabi. Professor, we cannot hear you. Ma'am, no, professor was not clear. Anyways, he was saying something, so I did not want to override. I'm awestruck, number one, with the knowledge that you have imparted in this short period of time. And I would say, as guru of gurus you are, and it shows. It shows actually. My question will be very specific to sustainability in times where already said that and the part that you said about sustaining is about what should be done now, and how we unlearn to sustain is how would we connect that, because these are the 2 key points, and I really connect to these the unlearn part because I'm a big fan of Rumi's actually. And bigger than Rumi's, I'm a bigger fan of his guru, and that is Shams. So that's why I believe more in gurus of guru. So you are a very spiritual person, all this. So how in a business environment, when we go about talking about sustainability and about unlearning, how do you just strike a balance in there? Because everything, as you said, is about balance. And sometimes while we are sustaining, we just forget about the basics. We some way do not keep things in place, or we are not able to unlearn because we have become rigid at this age. So please ma'am, I would like to listen to you, and as much as I can.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity and raising this pertinent question. When I was trying to spell out the success mantra, as Professor Aman had asked me to give the success mantra, the success mantra is essentially eternal. Eternal as in, when I said unlearn the past and be brave for the future in the new circumstances, what I'm trying to say is we will have to devise newer models. It is not that the concepts would die. No. If somebody would say teaching would become redundant? No, it is the model. It is the way that we have been teaching that will become redundant. So teaching, or we may not be able to have a face-to-face interaction with students for a long time to come, but that does not mean that we will completely shut down the education industry. It will find ways, it will devise its own ways to remain sustainable. So basically the concept of sustainability per se will remain, that can never be done away with, because that is the one of the essence, how to sustain and how to remain sustainable. That is an important aspect of life. And I believe every industry will have to reorient itself. So be it education, I just gave you an example of education. But if you talk about business, so it's not that the businesses or the entrepreneurs will not think about, new ideas, or will they just close down because they can't hire labor or they can't recruit people the way they used to. But then the process will have to reorient itself in some new mechanisms. And well, that is for the future to chart out how we are going to do that. I mean, that's a very big question. But as it is, if I see the education industry, we have done it with a lot of alacrity. If you see that 16th March, the lockdown started in India, and already Professor Aman Agarwal has held about 14 or 15 Zoom meetings with people from different fields, so you can imagine. So these are the people, who will lead us, who will tell us what is the way forward. And the mantra is eternal. I will stick to it, and it is eternal. It is just the ways in which you will handle the situations is what is most important. So I hope I have answered your
Yes,
question.
ma'am. Agreed totally. And especially going back to the philosophy, I was just feeling like we are back in the 80s. And I think that was the best times when we were growing up and, we did all the things that we did with family. And yes, we will sustain.
Yes, we will. Yes,
Go to
definitely.
Arsha seems to have left the room, maybe because of internet. I'll go to Dr. Yami to kindly ask a question. Dr. Yami.
Good afternoon, Dr. Sethi.
Good afternoon, Dr. Yamini.
I'd like to know that, there is a new education policy which is in pipeline now. How do you feel that the present education system, which has proved its mettle across the globe with its Indian diaspora heading to extremely senior positions like Sundar Pichai or the others, who've made, great landmark or have reached milestones in their life, what would this new education policy bring about a change in the meaning of life and the process with which we actually educate our children and learn and relearn ourselves?
So that's an interesting question. So basically, you see, we today, if I really have to look at the policy today, maybe the policy also will need to be, tweaked a little to accommodate the changed circumstances, because we do not know, how many students are going to enroll in the upcoming semester. We do not know whether the students who have left, are they going to return to the campus. We do not know how much instruction will remain online vis-a-vis the face-to-face instruction. And we also do not know how many teachers or how many faculty or the staff would be stricken with this illness in the times to come. We cannot rule it out completely. Not that, I can say that I will be able to survive out of this pandemic. Of course, I'm hopeful. I will sustain. But the point is that there are certain things, which are beyond our control. So maybe some of the institutions will face financial crisis in the times to come if they are not able to generate enough revenues to sustain themselves. And it will also be a phase where some of the old ones will have to get dismantled. And given the fact that travel is going to be one difficult thing, many of the foreign universities are going to find themselves difficult to sustain, because they have been sustaining on the student enrollment from some of these countries, where students have this opinion that post their graduation or post their post-graduation, they would like to go and acquire some additional degree or a diploma from a foreign university so as to improve on their, resume. So that way, things are going to change. So what is the current structure may have to be tweaked to accommodate a lot of things, not a lot of changes that have come up all of a sudden. So, and I still believe that the Indian education system is probably one of the best ones, and it has the rigor, it is very robust, and it trains the minds of the students in multiple ways. And and probably the new education policy has certain things which are not so likable, I would say, but then as of now, they may not even hold good, because some of them talk about the non-tenure appointment of teachers and all that. So now we are faced with a completely new picture, a different picture. We do not really know how many people will be retained. Of course, conservation should be the mantra here, particularly the human resource. They should not be, but then what we are witnessing globally may hold true for India as well in the coming times. So definitely I agree that every person will have to prove their mettle in the times to come, will have to adapt to the changes, and those who are lagging behind must be given enough space by everybody, be it the government, be it us as teachers, or anybody for that matter. They must be given enough time to cover up this lag, and not be left behind, not be, made to feel that they have been, not included in the process of development or in the process of growth as we visualize in the times to come.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Poonam, for this exhaustive interaction which we have had, and for taking out time. I have taken more time out from you as against what we had requested you for. Since there was so much of an interest and there were still some hands, but given the time of paucity and keeping that in frame, I would like to close this session in another 2 minutes. Before I close this, we have another dynamic young lady today, and I'm happy that there are more women coming on my forum now as before. She is going to be addressing the same session tomorrow at 12 o'clock. She is Miss Elizabeth Angela Fuller. She is both as a dual citizenship of UK and US. She's a Hollywood actress. She's a model and also writes a columnist. She has been Miss Great Britain 96-97 and Miss Wales Great Britain 94. She's also the ambassador for the Cancer Research UK and the Shelter, Tumor and the National Health Body of the UK as well. She's also, during her tenure, been an entrepreneur, because not only that she has a production company of her own, but she actually got this company which actually gives great titles for a period of 2 years, 2009 to 2011. She was the owner of Miss Great Britain Pageant UK, which was the one which honored her way back in 96-97. So she has an entrepreneurial skill in her. She is going to be reflecting with us from California, and so it will be midnight for her, so it's a different altogether ballgame, but she has agreed to be there with you. One more announcement that we are going to have we are also going to have another webinar on how to do research on Saturday afternoon by Dr. Yamini Agarwal, who is going to be giving this webinar. I thought I should just brief you all on this. Thank you for taking time out, and thank you, Dr. Poonam Sethi ji, for being here with us for such a long time. I know we digressed a little, but I think that was not digression, because that is part of the essence of life.
It was very interesting.
Yeah. Namaskar. Thank you.
Namaskar.
Stay safe.